Family patterns of dysfunction. These are patterns that can shape not only our lives, but also the lives of those who come after us. Family dysfunction isn't just about what happens in our homes. It's about the invisible threads that connect our past, our present, and our future. I want to delve deep into understanding these patterns, how they manifest, and most importantly, how we can break free from them to create healthier, more fulfilling lives. Family patterns of dysfunction are recurring behaviors, attitudes, and dynamics that get passed down through generations. These patterns can vary widely from subtle emotional neglect to overt substance abuse or even controlling behaviors. And often these patterns become so ingrained that we may not even recognize them as dysfunction. But they influence our actions, our decisions, and our relationships in profound ways. The unresolved emotional pain of one generation tends to become the burden of the next. Families repeat themselves. What we don't repair, we repeat. Dr. Karpman's words highlight a critical point. What isn't healed or addressed in one generation is often passed down, creating a cycle of dysfunction that can continue indefinitely. Let's explore 12 examples of family dysfunction patterns, how they manifest, and how they're carried over from one generation to the next. Firstly, emotional neglect. In a family where parents are emotionally unavailable, focusing on their careers or their personal issues, leaving children to tend for themselves emotionally, this happens. As adults, these children often struggle with expressing emotions or forming deep connections, and thereby they repeat the pattern with their own children. In the event of substance abuse, for example, a father who struggles with alcoholism, leading to chaotic and unstable family life. His children growing up in this environment may see substance abuse as a normal coping mechanism and may develop similar issues themselves. Let's look at controlling behavior. A mother who exerts excessive control over her children, dictating every aspect of their lives, will cause her children as adults to either become controlling themselves like she was, or to seek out relationships where they are controlled. And in that way, they perpetuate the pattern. What about perfectionism? A family that emphasizes achievement above all else, with love and approval contingent on success, this creates a cycle of anxiety and low self-esteem, as children who can't meet these high standards pass these unrealistic expectations onto their children. And in the case of physical and emotional abuse in a family where this kind of behavior is normalized, it can create a cycle where victims become abusers, or they enter into abusive relationships where they then repeat the trauma across generations. Silent treatment and passive aggression in a family where conflicts are never openly discussed, but are instead met with silent treatment or passive aggressive behavior. Children learn to suppress their feelings, and this leads to communication issues in their own relationships later in life. Enmeshment is a tricky one. In families where boundaries are blurred and individuality is discouraged, family members are overly involved in each other's lives, and this creates a lack of independence that is also passed down to future generations. And then I want to talk about gossiping and backstabbing. Now, in some families, gossiping about each other is quite common, and this breeds distrust and insecurity, and it teaches the next generation that relationships are built on mistrust and manipulation, which is not a good thing. Financial insecurity, on the other hand, can also pass on the fear of financial insecurity to children in a family that is constantly struggling with finances. This fear is often passed down. And children may either repeat this cycle of poor financial management, or they might become obsessed with financial security at the cost of personal happiness. Unresolved grief in a family who does not properly grieve the loss of a loved one can also manifest in depression or even emotional detachment in future generations. And let's take a look at codependency. In families where one member is always saving or fixing the others, it leads to an unhealthy dynamic where personal boundaries are disregarded, and it creates a cycle of dependency that is continued and repeated. A lack of communication, where important issues are never discussed in a family and emotions are suppressed. The next generation often struggles with expressing themselves, and they may repeat this pattern in their own families. Now, these examples show just how varied and pervasive family dysfunction can be, but they can also highlight the fact that these patterns, though deeply ingrained, can be identified and they can be changed. So let's look at the role we play in the family dysfunction. Understanding the patterns is the first step, but equally important is recognizing our own role within them. It's easy to view ourselves as the victims of these patterns, but we all play a part, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. Sheryl Sandberg, who's an author and an activist, wrote, "We cannot change what we are not aware of, and once we are aware of it, we cannot help but change." This awareness is crucial. We need to ask ourselves, how do I respond when these patterns emerge? Do I perpetuate them or do I challenge them? And understanding this is key to breaking that cycle. Coping with family dysfunction is challenging, but it's not impossible. Experts in psychology and family therapy offer valuable insights into how we can manage and mitigate these patterns. Brené Brown, who's a famous researcher and author, says setting boundaries is not about cutting off your family, but it's about creating space for yourself to grow. Boundaries are essential. They allow us to protect our mental and emotional health while still maintaining relationships with our families. It's about finding that balance where you can be true to yourself without being drawn into unhealthy dynamics. And if you're interested to learn more about boundaries, I have an online course that you can do at your own pace. We'll probably finish it in an hour or two, and you'll find a link to that in the comments below. Dr. John Gottman, who is a relationship expert, said healthy communication starts with listening, truly listening without judgment or interruption. Effective communication is another critical tool. It involves not just speaking your truth, but also listening, really listening to others. And this opens the door to mutual understanding and respect, which are foundational to breaking dysfunctional patterns. So I'm going to give you 12 action steps to overcome family dysfunction. These are 12 practical tips to help you respond or choose not to respond to family dysfunction, but it will definitely help you to break free from these patterns. First of all, acknowledge the pattern. The first step is recognizing the dysfunctional pattern. Acknowledge its presence and its impact in your life. And then set boundaries. Define what behaviors you will and won't accept. Communicate these boundaries clearly and stick to them. Then practice self-care. Prioritize your own well-being, and this includes mental, emotional, and physical self-care, which is crucial in managing the stress that comes with family dysfunction. Seek professional help. Reach out to me, because a therapist or a counselor can provide guidance and tools for you to help you navigate the family dynamics and breaking those unhealthy patterns. Also, educate yourself, like watching videos like this. Learn about family dynamics and dysfunction. Understand the psychology behind these patterns, because that can empower you to make the changes. Develop healthy communication skills. Work on expressing your thoughts and your feelings clearly and respectfully, while also actively listening to others. And don't take on the family's emotional baggage. It's important to separate your emotions from the family's dysfunction. Don't internalize issues that aren't yours to fix. Focus on what you can control. You can't change others, but you can change how you respond to them. So focus on your own actions and reactions. And cultivate your resilience. Strengthen your emotional resilience by practicing mindfulness and gratitude and other positive coping mechanisms. Because then you can break the cycle. Make a conscious effort to change the pattern. This might involve doing things differently from how they were done in your family of origin. And foster healthy relationships. Surround yourself with supportive, healthy relationships outside of your family. These can provide a positive contrast to dysfunctional dynamics. And lastly, be patient with yourself. Breaking family patterns takes time and effort, and it can be exhausting at times. So be kind to yourself as you navigate this challenging process. Now, these steps are not easy, but they are powerful. By taking action, you not only change your own life, but you also pave the way for future generations to live free from the constraints of the family dysfunction. If you've recognized some of these patterns in your own life, I encourage you to take that first step towards change. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it, not just for you, but for everyone who comes after you. You have the power to break the cycle. Take care of yourself, set boundaries, and please seek support. For more resources and support on overcoming family dysfunction and cultivating resilience, visit Get Up and Grow. Together we can build a brighter, healthier future.